As I look at the week's events, I think, well, interesting that we talked a lot about this issue. Here is President Obama speaking to Democratic governors, encouraging them to move forward with minimum wage increases and defending the minimum wage. I wonder if he'll point to the CBO's study or he'll just speak to politics. Roll it.
This is not just good policy, it also happens to be good politics. Because the truth of the matter is the overwhelming majority of Americans think that raising the minimum wage is a good idea. That is true for independents, that is true for Democrats, and it's true for Republicans.
So what's popular is not always right, and what's right is not always popular, Webster, I believe. The idea of this really shows the fact that, hey, well, it works for everybody. Everybody likes it. Even though the CBO says it's going to cost 500,000 jobs, it's better to have symbolism over substance, and we can win that debate. And it will have, obviously, a deleterious effect on job creation. What's the problem in America? Well, there's not enough jobs. Well, what's the real problem? Well, policies are not there to incentivize production. Oh, I've talked about this more than any other issue this week. And while I can talk about life a lot, and I can talk about foreign policy a good deal, by the way, Chad Groening anchoring tonight, as he's done for a good part of the week, and bravo to Chad and American Family News for bringing you up to speed on the top stories of the day. There's a lot of things we can talk about. Why am I hitting this? Because it goes at the heart of what's wrong with our political discussion. It's not based on substance. It's not based on the result. And part of that is the corruption in the mainstream media. Wah. I get it. But I'm not whining here. What I am saying is that's a part of what's wrong. It's the narratives that are already shaped. And rather than asking the question, how does it end? What do you want as a result? Because the result of your policy, even though Democrats and independents and Republicans agree, we're not about D's and R's. It's not about political party. It's about accountability. Accountability for the result of one's policies. That's all I want you to think about. Now, why does that matter? Because the result is what we're left with, which is 500,000 jobs that won't be created. But this goes to the center of really what the foundation is, which is, as I mentioned earlier today, I don't want to repeat myself, but I had the privilege of sitting in for Kevin McCullough on AFA Today, which I've done twice this week, and I'll do once again next week, Tuesday. Just guest hosting, filling in. It goes to what statism brings and encourages and incentivizes. And how we have arguments against for the minimum wage that are accusing businesses of not being fair. And it shows that we may have an incredible legacy of what freedom has yielded. But when you go back and you say, how did this happen? It wasn't through government coming in and instituting these types of policies that limit freedom. And that goes to the heart of where our freedom comes from, which is God. Government is to protect that freedom, ostensibly. So what we're talking about here goes to what kind of America we want. And what kind of America we're being delivered through the mainstream media. And what gets me, what really upsets me, is there's a lot of information that's out there that's simply not true, even when confronted with the truth. Here's the truth. 500,000 jobs. No, they won't be created. It'll cost 500,000 jobs. That's the Congressional Budget Office. Here's the truth. The people in poverty that's supposed to help the most, only 19% will be hit by this. Why? Who earns the minimum wage? The majority of people are out of poverty and are from contributing to middle class families' incomes. They're also younger. They're not heads of households. 2/3 of people receiving the minimum wage will also get a raise within the year. So you have, this is what's, I mean, think, you take the minimum wage, you can apply it to health care, but I'll get to that in a second. We go to Gene Sperling and his comment the other day, dealing with the fact that, no, the results of the policy in the adult world, we have to deal with results, don't we? Yeah, we do. We have to deal with the impact of that. We don't have a printing machine, a money tree in the back. I mean, I look at the president, I think to myself, oh, okay, well, his decisions, he's just got his money, he's just going to take it. Because the policies are not going to impact him earning it, he'll just borrow more from our kids. Say, Crane, you're demonizing the president. No, I'm looking at what he wants to do and his defense of his policy, and I'm saying there's something seriously wrong if anybody takes that in and doesn't come out with the idea of, whoa, you're making a decision because it's politically expedient as opposed to doing the right thing. Aren't you supposed to be a different type of leader? Aren't you supposed to be a leader rather than a politician? Because we've got enough politicians and Republicans and Democrats. You're supposed to transcend the political affiliations of our country to bring people together as every politician and every president has promised since day one. So, no, I'm not demonizing the president. I'm drawing a difference between a politician and a leader. It's a stark contrast. Here, Gene Sperling, economic advisor to the president, defending 500,000 jobs that are not going to be created because of this minimum wage hike. That's what it will do. Roll it.
Is that it's not going to have an impact on jobs, and it has, and I think it's supported because so many families do see people benefiting. They do see the family struggling to raise their children out above poverty, but they also know what it's like to see a friend, a neighbor, where one spouse goes back to work, who prefer maybe not to work. Maybe they're working part-time just to supplement the family's income, and they think if that family member is making that sacrifice, spending less time with the child, then they should be making a decent living or be able to work less because they're getting a decent wage. Look, 1010 in 2016 is a moderate increase. I think most Americans think people who work full-time like that, they aren't relying on the government. In fact, a higher minimum wage means people will rely less on the government. It's more on their own work effort. These are people who just want to work hard and support their family. That's why Americans support increasing the minimum wage. That's why the president's pushing.
But they lose their job. Oh, I get it. You're from the school of thought that comes in and views us as objects where we don't respond to incentives and disincentives. But I get it. It'll be the employer's fault because they need to make a profit. And in order to do that, they've got to become competitive price-wise. And in order to do that, they've got to hire less people, or they have to raise their prices, which drives everything up for the very people you're talking about helping, by the way. Doesn't make sense. This is not good. This is not a good response. And the fact that we keep getting this is a problem. The fact that we have a mainstream media that doesn't expose it for what it is. And that's the problem to this. Mainstream media says anything that comes out on the conservative ledger when it comes out to the accountability, that would be biased if we actually told you the truth. What is the result of this policy? CBO is doing that. And it's infuriating. It's a lot like Obamacare, the results of Obamacare. Just listen to Kathleen Sebelius earlier on this week. Roll it.
There is absolutely no evidence, and every economist will tell you this, that there is any job loss related to the Affordable Care Act. Part-time positions are actually down since 2010, not up. The number of full-time workers continues to increase. So I know that that's a popular myth that continues to be repeated, but it just is not accurate.
Simply wrong. The vast majority of jobs created last year or excuse me, we'll talk net jobs are part-time. Period. She also obviously was not aware of the CBO report saying it would result in 2.5 million fewer jobs. So now you have 3 million jobs. She was aware? Do you think she was? Oh, that means she's just a liar and she's counting on the press not to expose how ridiculous it is to stand in front of people like Baghdad Bob and just not tell the truth? Yeah, again, why we're covering this and why it's important that we expose it for what it is. No problem with the contest of ideas. No problem with this. America's hurting. America's hurting not because individual Americans aren't able to do the work or haven't been blessed with the gifts to do the work. They are facing an administration and policies that are limiting their freedom, that is the fuel, if you will, to drive the engine of growth and their ability to use, or excuse me, the opportunity to use their wonderful gifts. Just something to keep in mind, as you know. That said, what is your headline of the week? What is the story that really gets you going? Here's something that got me going, and it has to do with John Kerry making a statement earlier on this week. 1-888, by the way, 589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. John Kerry, cut number 40, I believe. Roll it. And this is Secretary of State John Kerry calling global warming and climate change a national security threat on level with terrorism. Roll it.
Well, I got to say, once again, what people...
When I think about the array of global climate, of global threats, think about this. Terrorism, epidemics, poverty, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, all challenges that know no borders. The reality is that climate change ranks right up there with every single one of them.
To which Newt Gingrich responded. And here he is, cut number 20 on Crossfire. Roll it.
So tell us why you think he's delusional and dangerous.
Well, you just showed it for 30 minutes on CNN. You look at the violence in Kiev. Look at the violence in Syria. Look at the violence in Iraq. Look at the Iranians trying to get a nuclear weapon. Look at the 100+ nuclear weapons that we have in Pakistan. Look at the Chinese nuclear arsenal, the Russian nuclear arsenal. This is not some U.S. senator just having a wild speech to please the left. This is the Secretary of State of the United States of America at an international forum saying that the greatest threat is global climate change during a year, by the way, in which his facts were just plain wrong. He had a whole series of statements that are factually false, and I think it's, again, fine for U.S. senators because there are 100 of them, and any one of them on any given day can be wrong. But the Secretary of State ought to be held to a standard of seriousness that this speech totally falls short of.
So what do you think was a response from Van Jones, a co-host on Crossfire, to Speaker Gingrich? Roll it.
Should serious people focus on global political instability, terrorism, failing states, nuclear weapons? Or should we focus on global climate instability, droughts, floods, extreme weather? Here's the correct answer. Yes, both. Because climate disruption will make every other national security problem worse. Big floods, crazy weather, that can destabilize governments, especially weak governments. That makes it easier for extremists to grab power or to grab nuclear weapons. There's no food, people riot. When the oceans rise, people flee. You can imagine a world with some of these scenarios with 1 billion climate refugees. That's a dangerous place. Look, all these issues are interrelated. It's not delusional to focus on climate disruption. It's delusional not to.
Okay. Well, people can make their own assessment. Throughout the show we have, and we've talked about the fact of not settled science, about the scandal at East Anglia University and the Climate Research Unit and the suppression of emails, the fact that we've seen a flat line on the Earth's temperature. The fact is that Senator Inhofe, was right. We bring you that side of the story. Man-made global warming, as it was, is no longer used as a term to refer to environmental discussion because they have to move to climate change, which is what we've seen in the past, cyclical. We can investigate whether carbon emissions contribute to the heating or not, but we certainly don't see a causation within the last 15 years, and that was the foundation of the argument of Al Gore and others. Al Gore should be a man who lives in a van down by the river if he were judged on his business plan and his business idea, and the whole concept of everything he's put in has turned out not to be true, and it would cost us liberty and economic freedom. So, yeah, and I don't know if that would be the headline of the week. What would be your headline of the week? The top story of the week. If you're writing and you said, okay, we have one headline I'm able to broadcast, I'm able to put it out there, what would it be? Headline of the week, 1-888-589-8840. That's 1-888-589-8840. What is your headline of the week? And you all can let me know if my screen is locked or not. But I have my screen up. So we can do that. We have Hector from South Carolina. Hector, welcome.
Long time no talk, Crane.
All right. Good to be with you, Hector.
Yeah, man. Good morning, USA. Obama is giving you the shaft. That's the headline of the week.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of us are awake yet, especially the liberals. But I think they're slowly coming out of their slumber about what this tyrant of a president is doing to us. He's deliberately taking our country apart and our military, deliberate, methodically. He's got advisors. He's aiming us into a third world country status is where he wants us to be. And you can ask him personally, but I doubt he'd give you the truth. But you're dealing with a confidence man, and you don't play the confidence man game, or you will get the shaft continuously like others have found out. And
okay, well, Hector, I would say that there are those who have said that he believes in what he is doing is the very best for his country. And it's interesting because I heard Bill O'Reilly answer this question about saying, well, he gives the president the benefit of the doubt in that way. I have to say, we'll know them by their fruits. Do we know that power has been used to silence those who disagree with him? Does the buck stop with the president? And whether he is knowingly driving this country into the ground with his policies or not, I can't get inside his head. I can see the results of his policies, and I can look at history and say, wow, I look at the results, I look at what he's pushing. He's obviously not reading the feedback because he's not turning toward something that would be successful. And maybe he believes he's making America better, and maybe he even believes in America as a country and the power of the federal government, certainly, but he doesn't believe in the individual liberty of Americans. That's what comes back to me. The idea that he respects that and understands that, a profound misunderstanding. And that's where I can go. I can't get into his heart. Appreciate your phone call as always, Hector. And we go to Jeremiah in the great state of New Mexico. Welcome, Jeremiah. Hello? Jeremiah? Okay. All right. Well, we tried, Jeremiah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. So, as we are heading away, the FCC story was a very big story, and I will choose to cover that at a later date. They've pulled back on the study. But keep in mind, this is a signal to those who disagree with the administration and those that are reporting. It has to do with the fact of going inside newsrooms and finding how they come up with content and what is steering their coverage of what they're covering and how they're doing it. The administration has no trust in this in light of the fact that we've had the abuses of power, people not being held to account. So why else? Well, they tried to shut down Fox News. That's another thing. If we were to have any kind of fair, balanced approach to media, I don't believe the president would be in office today, because there would be a movement to impeach him. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen, because people are still figuring out that Benghazi, the president lied. IRS, people lied, and power was abused, and there has been no accountability. Smidgen of corruption. We have these emails, an email most recently released regarding the rules and why the rules were going to be off book. It's corruption. We have a huge problem with corruption, and we want accountability. Remember, those of you who are cheering this and saying there's no scandal there, take a good look at the scandal. Or if you don't want to call it a scandal, just take a good look at the facts. You'll find that 60 Minutes covered for the president and could have exposed a lie that he told to Candy Crawley. You'll find that Candy Crawley was wrong. You'll find the fact that we are learning more as time goes on about how people were misled and we were lied to about a video. I'm just speaking to Benghazi. I could speak to the IRS. I could speak to Fast and Furious. A whole host of things. This is not to say, oh, things are bad. I think this is going to inevitably be good, because people will realize what our founders understood, that human nature doesn't evolve. Ruling class in Washington is not a trade-off for liberty, and never should be, because inevitably it will impact you. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart. Always keep the faith in Jesus Christ. Thank you.